Rubber Beauties, Rubber Beauties, they're true to themselves. Rubber Beauties, Rubber Beauties, they're true. It's true, it's true, it's true. Rubber Beauties, Rubber Beauties, they're true to themselves.
Rubber Beauties listenership was off last week, 27%, no Lester. That was the comments. Everybody, as soon as they realized Lester wasn't on, ratings.
Listen, I didn't even tune in.
Come on, man. Support your own podcast.
I love it. I'm just kidding.
Rubber Beauties is brought to you by our friends at betsafe.net. This week on Beauties, please, once again, I have to say every week, if you're listening to Rubber Beauties without having to listen to Beauties, what's wrong with you? Like, we're talking only about the podcast Beauties, so it doesn't make sense to listen to Rubber Beauties before you listen to Beauties. Trust me, Beauties is great, right, Stoff?
Oh,
Stoff pours his heart and soul into Beauties.
It's a great podcast.
Amongst other
it really
things.
You
is.
do a great job, Stoff.
This week we featured our pal Dave Poulie, and one of my favorite stories in the book. I know I say that a lot, but this one is
a lot
the
of good
story of
stories.
Mike Milbury bag skating himself.
It is really good.
A little insider. This was the very first interview I did for Beauties.
Really?
Dave Poulie and I played golf. Sorry, my dog Hugo is barking. Dave Poulie and I played golf at a little golf course. Had one of my finest golf rounds of the year, but the listeners don't want to hear that. Shot 38 on the back.
Ooh.
Actually, it was 35 on the back. 44-35 was one of my strangest nine holes in Beacon Hall. You want me to go hole by hole?
Yeah. What did you hit on 14?
So 44-35. Who does that? Anyway, Poulie and I did this interview in the parking lot of Beacon Hall Golf Course. Very first interview I did for Beauties last summer. I guess last summer, last summer. 2 summers ago. I don't freaking know. And I had heard the Milbury story multiple times, Puffy, and you must have as well, because in all the different people that make their way through the panel over the 20 years that we've done NHL on TSN, or that I've been a part of it, this story kept creeping up about how Mike Milbury had bag skated himself in front of his team. And so I'd heard it, but secondhand through numerous people. And then Poulie was the first guy who was actually there and saw it. And so I wanted him to tell that story. And I just think it would be a great scene from a movie. I don't know that there's enough for a movie in there, but the coach, for Mike Milbury to stand there, yell at guys, and then bag skate himself for them, it's just, that needs to be in a film somewhere. It's like Kurt Russell saying, you know, in the Miracle movie, again, except he's doing it to himself, right? Spectacular. Poulie had a career, like, I think with our generation, like there's an entire generation now that's kind of forgotten what Dave Poulie was.
Yeah.
Like Dave Poulie was a legendary two-way forward back in our day, right, Lester?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
You do the classic games all the time. Like, he was part of that Philly machine. It was always Brian Propp and Dave Poulie.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Listen, you think about that. Would he have been in Boston when they were in 88 and 90 when they faced the Oilers? I can't remember.
Yeah.
That was his first year in Boston. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, so he would have been on some very, very good teams that didn't win, probably, well, quite frankly, because of the Oilers, right?
This Beauties episode is actually from that year when they lost, I believe, in the Cup final, right?
Yeah,
Looking at it right
1990.
1990.
The 1990 final. That's the one that had that game one, I think, that won like 3 or 4 overtimes, and Peter Klima scored.
Yeah.
He hadn't been on the ice for about an hour and a half.
Glenn Wesley had a wide open net and missed earlier in that game. It would have changed the whole series, I'm telling you. But just to get back to the story now, first of all, the legendary team, and I mean, I know that he went through a lot of guys on that team, but to get to Ray Bork at the end there, I found that was pretty funny. What do you say to Bork again? Forgive me.
Ray giveaway.
Ray.
Say that to him.
Bork had,
Raymond Bork.
Yeah, and then they played a game on the weekend. Bork has a goal and 5 assists.
Yes.
And that was one of those months too. Poulie told me that. He said the next game, I think Ray had a goal and 5 assists. And I thought, okay, that's going to be one of those stories that's exaggerated over the years. And so I go into Hockey Reference, and sure enough, Ray Bork had a goal and 5 assists, and skates by the bench and says, "Ray, give away my ass," which is amazing.
Well, that's something. Poolie's a little like a lot of the guys over the years. Sometimes their memories aren't 100%. Poolie's pretty locked in on what happened with his career.
One of the sharpest guys we've certainly had on the panel. And, the other aspect of the story, I love, the story of guys getting traded and how they find out. And Poulie had become in his, just thinking if it's 9 years with the Flyers or eight seasons with the Flyers, close friends with Bob Clarke. Like Bob Clarke, when he was the one who sort of brought Poulie along, they trained together, they played golf together. And for Clarke, to call him up and trade him just like another guy, it just shows the cold-hearted business that hockey is, right?
Yeah,
and I love the fact that Poulie didn't want to know who he was trading for, which is what the lesson that Clarke told him, which would have frustrated the hell out of Clarke when he called him.
Yeah. Who you traded for? I don't know. Don't you want to know? No, I didn't know.
Clarke, by the way, has not come in a long time, but used to make frequent appearances on NHL on TSN, and it was one of mine and Puffy's favorites because just again, kind of the opposite of what you'd expect. He was such a hard-ass hockey player, but he's such a soft-spoken, quiet, nice guy. Right,
it was incredible because like when you'd be around him, you'd kind of remember that he's a legend in hockey, and his personality and the stories about him being, he's tough as anyone. He was a bit of a wild card. Some of the stuff he'd say as a general manager of the Flyers, and then you talking to him, and he's just so soft spoken, and he was a really nice man and funny, and it was not exactly what you would expect when you say Bobby Clarke as far as
we had on Classic we had a occasion to interview him twice. Once when he was with us, as you said, James doing the panel. But we did one of the first things Classic did in 2002. At that time, I think it was the 30th. Well, it would have been the 30th anniversary of the 72 Summit Series. So to hear you guys talk about Bob Clarke this way is funny because if you recall, he's the one that went out and broke Harlamov's ankle with a slash.
Yeah.
So, those guys. That era, it was like
crazy.
You talk about guys
all
hanging
bets
out,
off.
but playing golf together. They never did that. Like Russian or not, like you're on the Habs and I'm on the Bruins. We do not speak during the season. If you see me in a bar, look the other way. It's crazy how it's changed. But we're getting back to Clarke and certainly Poulie, class guys, and you can see it with Poulie as an analyst how cerebral he is, and you can see how his game translated into what he's doing now. So that makes a lot of sense. And I imagine again that his recollections are quite accurate.
3 quick Bob Clarke stories, and I should actually save one of them for when we do the Darren Drager chapter of Beauties, because it's pretty funny. But so I'll tease that and just tell you 2. Puffy knows these, but Clarke came in with a mangled finger once. He got it caught in a lawnmower, Puff?
I think it was a lawnmower, yeah.
So it was just awful, just a mess. And he was supposed to see the surgeon or whatever. And then he comes back. I think Clarke was in the next month. And the finger was just gone. The finger was gone. And we said, Clarke, what happened? He said, well, I could have rehabbed it, but I was going to miss 3 months of golf. So I just told him to cut it off.
Who says that?
That reminds me of that woman in the what was it, the Tiger King documentary, where it's like, well, we can rehab your hand, it'll be back to normal in about a year.
And then she just
cut it off.
I know.
I want to go
Who
see
says that?
Yeah,
Yikes.
Ronnie Lott, Bob Clarke, and the woman in Tiger King, having their fingers cut off. The second was that Clarke, the evil quizmaster, who is an actual real person, does a fantastic job with all our guests talking to them, doing pre-interviews, talking about subjects and stories that they want to talk about. And, you know, a lot of the stuff that happens on television is more rehearsed than you think, right? I think people know that when they see the quiz, the answers have been given in advance because Puffy has to get all the video ready and everything like this. So it's not really spontaneous. So Clarke was the one guy I used to always tell the quiz master that he was screwing up, because Clarke was great off the cuff. Just ask him any question and he'll give you these great answers. But when you tried to prep Clarke, he just didn't like that, and he would just either get confused or lost. And Clarke, back when in the early years of the quiz, we tried to keep the quiz mysterious. Like, we tried to keep people thinking that the quiz was these guys were hearing the question for the first time, like a real game show, right? That was the kind of mystery of the quiz. And Clarke, so I asked question 1 of the quiz, and I'm like, here are your 3 options: Phil Esposito, Marc Messier, or Mario Lemieux. I don't even remember what the question was. And Clarke's like, wasn't paying attention clearly, and had his notes mixed up. And he says, well, the answer is Dominic Asher. And I'm like, no, Clarke, that's the answer for the next question we're about to do. And so he exploded the mystery of the quiz.
Oh, yeah. The quiz.
Because he gave the wrong answer to the wrong question. Wow. That was one of my more challenging quizzes, because I'm like, how do I get out of this right now? Yeah. Clarke has just given the answer to question 3 with question 2, but loved Clarke. Another one of the guys we really loved, and we love having Poulie around on a day-to-day basis. And Milbury was also one of our guys early in his television career before he went to NBC.
He was great too. He was
Think about Milbury. He was good for television because I don't really think he believed. He would sit in the meeting that we would have, and we'd ask a question, like we were going to talk about that night, headshots or something. What do you think? And he'd sit there and he'd go, Bob, what do you think? And he'd get Bob's opinion. Dregs, what do you think? Whoever else was on the panel, what do you think? And then he would formulate his opinion only after talking to them. And then when he got on the air, he was the most opinionated guy by far. Like, it was the most passionate thing he'd ever talked about. So, which, you know, he played it up for television, which is what makes someone good at television. But I always found that very interesting about Milbury, is that he was a television character more than anything else. Much more soft-spoken in person.
And
anyway,
I think people forget he was a really good coach. Like Poulie said, like I know he had a tough run as a general manager with the Islanders, but Poulie said he was one of his favorite coaches.
Yeah, they loved him. They loved him. Lester?
Hey, if something went wrong on the panel, did he beat you with a shoe?
We showed that video about twice a week.
Literally every time he was on, we showed that video.
Like,
nobody can milk something like TSN.
It still is one of the greatest pieces of video in
it really
so
is.
funny, unbelievable. Beating
the
a guy
crowd,
with a shoe.
Beating a guy with a shoe.
But the malice at the palace was viewed so much worse somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, if that happened today, it would be like TSN would explode.
Well, if it happened today, they'd be beating one of the cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, it's true.
A little different.
That would
great
be
TV. Great TV.
Nice.
We'll see you next week on Rubber Beauties.
Rubber Beauties, Rubber Beauties, they're true to themselves. Rubber Beauties, they're true. It's true. Rubber Beauties, they're true to themselves.
Are you wearing your rubber boots tonight?